The sleek obsidian ship drifted silently through the asteroid belt, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to all but the most advanced detection arrays. Inside, Xarthal sat motionless in his quarters, 4 amber eyes fixed on the holographic display floating before him. The face of Guild Coordinator Zexmore flickered slightly as the transmission fought through the asteroid belt's natural interference. "This contract is special," Zexmore said, his voice carrying the distinctive clicking undertones of their species. "The target is human." Xarthal's secondary eyelids flicked in surprise. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, barely a century since first contact. Their kind rarely ventured beyond their solar system and neighboring colonies except for diplomats and traders. "A human?" Xarthal asked. "Why would anyone pay guild rates to eliminate a member of such an insignificant species?" Zexmore's facial tendrils twitched with annoyance. "The client's reasons are not our concern. The payment speaks for itself." Another hologram appeared, displaying a sum that made even Xarthal's practiced composure slip. "Triple the standard rate," Xarthal noted, "for what appears to be a simple task. The target is a diplomat stationed on Nexus Station. John Carter, human male, aged 42 standard cycles. The added compensation reflects the political sensitivity." Xarthal studied the image that appeared next, a pale-skinned creature with thin lips, flat teeth, and dull brown fur atop its head. Nothing remarkable. Nothing dangerous. Certainly nothing worth triple rates. "The details seem incomplete," Xarthal said. "Security measures. Bodyguards." "Minimal," Zexmore replied. "One personal guard, a female named Samantha Miller. Humans rely more on station security than personal protection. Their species lacks natural defenses and has poor sensory awareness." Xarthal's inner eyelids narrowed. "If they're so vulnerable, why the premium payment?" "Location, not difficulty. Nexus Station is neutral ground with representatives from 50 species. An assassination there requires delicacy." Still, something felt wrong. In 300 successful eliminations across 17 systems, Xarthal had developed instincts that kept him alive. Those instincts were humming now. "I'll need more intelligence on human biology. Weaknesses, reaction times, toxin susceptibility. Already included in the data package," Zexmore said, gesturing with a clawed hand. "You'll find humans are fragile creatures. Their only advantage is their adaptability to different environments." Xarthal scrolled through the biological data. Slow reflexes, poor night vision, limited hearing range, no natural armor or weapons. Their only notable trait was their endurance. They could maintain activity for longer periods than most species. "This will be simple," Xarthal said, though his instincts still warned him otherwise. "One more thing," Zexmore added. "The client specifically requested no collateral casualties. The human dies alone or payment is forfeit." Xarthal nodded. "Clean work is my specialty. I accept the contract." "Good. You have 15 standard days to complete the elimination. Your advance payment has been transferred to your secure account." The transmission ended, leaving Xarthal alone with his thoughts. He moved to his weapons locker, selecting tools appropriate for the job. A poison applicator designed to mimic natural death, backup paralytic darts, and his personal blade of Corellian steel, more for comfort than necessity. As his ship changed course for Nexus Station, Xarthal prepared his cover identity, a Vexorian trade representative seeking new markets for rare minerals. He had used the cover successfully on 3 previous contracts. What he couldn't know, was that his intended target was already aware of his approach. In his private quarters on Nexus Station, John Carter was reviewing the security briefing, Samantha Miller standing beside him. "Are you sure about this approach, sir?" she asked, her posture casual but her eyes sharp. Carter nodded, a slight smile crossing his face. "Let him come. It's time the galaxy understood what it means to hunt a human." Samantha's lips curled into a smile that would have chilled Xarthal's blood had he seen it. "Should I prepare the welcome package?" "Yes," Carter replied. "Let's make sure our visitor gets the proper human greeting." Nexus Station hung like a metal spider in the void, its 8 massive docking arms extending from a central hub that housed the diplomatic quarters. Xarthal stepped off the transport shuttle, his appearance now altered to match his cover identity. His natural purple skin was now a dull gray, and his taller head crest had been chemically flattened to match the traitor caste of his species. The customs officer, a bored-looking Centaurian with 3 eyes, barely glanced at his papers. "Purpose of visit: mineral trade negotiations," Xarthal replied, his voice modulator adjusting his natural clicking speech into something more acceptable in mixed company. "Duration of stay: 10 standard days." The officer stamped his documents and waved him through. Xarthal allowed himself a small smile. The first barrier passed so easily. Nexus Station's security was notorious, but mainly focused on weapons and contraband, not identities. His tools had been shipped separately, hidden in special containers that would arrive tomorrow through a different channel. Xarthal checked into his assigned quarters in the commercial district, 2 levels below the diplomatic section where his target resided. The room was small but adequate, with a nutrient dispenser calibrated for multiple species and a viewing port that looked out on the vast starfield. After securing his room with 3 different countermeasure devices, Xarthal began his standard reconnaissance. He uploaded the station map to his neural implant and studied the diplomatic sector's layout, noting security checkpoints, camera locations, and potential escape routes. The next morning, Xarthal positioned himself in the central plaza, a vast open area where representatives from dozens of species mingled. He sat at a small cafe, sipping a bitter Arcturian tea while pretending to read market reports on a datapad. In reality, his enhanced vision was scanning the crowd, waiting. At precisely 9:30 station time, John Carter appeared. The human moved with a casual stride through the plaza, stopping occasionally to greet other diplomats. Xarthal studied him carefully. Carter was taller than the average human, with broad shoulders and a straight posture that suggested physical training beyond diplomatic corps requirements. More interesting was the woman who walked slightly behind him, Samantha Miller, the supposed lone bodyguard. Xarthal had expected a hulking human draped in obvious armor. Instead, Miller was slight, dressed in simple clothes that matched the station's civilian style. No visible weapons, no earcom, nothing to suggest she was security at all. Xarthal watched as Carter stopped to speak with an Andorian trade minister. While they talked, Miller's eyes never stopped moving, scanning the crowd in a methodical pattern. When her gaze passed over Xarthal, he felt an unexpected chill. Her eyes didn't linger, showed no sign of recognition, yet something in that brief glance made his instincts flare again. For the next 3 days, Xarthal followed the same pattern. He observed Carter's routines, noting that the human kept surprisingly regular hours for a diplomat. Morning meetings in the council chambers, lunch in the central plaza, afternoon in his office, and dinner at one of the station's many restaurants. The bodyguard, Miller, was always present but never intrusive. She maintained the perfect distance, close enough to intervene if needed, far enough to give privacy. Her casual demeanor never slipped, yet Xarthal noticed that she always positioned herself between Carter and any potential threat. On the 4th day, Xarthal identified his opportunity. Carter always took the same route from his quarters to the council chambers, passing through a less-traveled corridor that connected the diplomatic sector to the central hub. The corridor had fewer cameras, and a maintenance shaft ran directly above it, perfect for an ambush. That evening, Xarthal returned to his quarters to prepare. His equipment had arrived, hidden in containers of Vexorian mineral samples. He assembled his tools with practiced efficiency, a dart launcher small enough to fit in his palm, toxins specifically calibrated for human biology, and sensor scramblers to blind the corridor's security systems. As he worked, a message appeared on his datapad. Unusual, since no one should have his secure channel. The message contained just 5 words. "They know you are here." Zarthol deleted the message instantly, his 4 eyes narrowing. A trap? A warning? Or simple misdirection from arrival? Whatever it was, he would proceed with greater caution. After all, no prey had ever escaped Zarthol once he had them in his sights, and humans, by all accounts, were the easiest prey of all. Zarthol could not sleep. The warning message bothered him more than he wanted to admit. After triple-checking his room for surveillance devices and finding none, he paced the small space, all 4 of his eyes blinking in different patterns, a sign of deep agitation among his species. "Impossible," he muttered to himself. His cover was perfect. His guild contacts were secure. No one on this station could know his true purpose. Just before station dawn, he made a decision. He would accelerate his timeline. The longer he remained, the greater the risk of exposure. Today, he would eliminate the human diplomat and be gone before anyone realized what had happened. Zarthol gathered his equipment and slipped out of his quarters. The station corridors were quiet at this hour, with only maintenance droids and night shift workers moving about. He made his way to the maintenance shaft he had identified above the corridor where Carter would pass. Using a stolen maintenance code, he opened an access panel and climbed inside. The shaft was narrow but navigable, filled with pipes and conduits that carried the station's lifeblood of power, data, and atmosphere. Zarthol moved silently through the maze until he reached the position above his chosen ambush point. He set up quickly, attaching surveillance scramblers to nearby security nodes and preparing his dart launcher. The poison he had selected was particularly suited to humans. It would mimic a natural heart failure, making detection unlikely until he was long gone from the station. As he waited, Zarthol reviewed what he knew about humans. Their planet was mostly water, with high gravity by galactic standards. This gave them dense muscle structure and strong bones, but nothing extraordinary. Their sensory organs were limited: poor night vision, average hearing, and a weak sense of smell. Their only remarkable trait, according to the data, was their endurance and adaptability to different environments. Hardly a species to fear. 3 hours passed. Zarthol remained perfectly still, a skill perfected over decades of similar hunts. Finally, his audio enhancers picked up approaching footsteps. 2 sets, Carter and his bodyguard, right on schedule. He readied the dart launcher, his finger hovering over the trigger. Through a small gap in the shaft flooring, he could see the corridor below. The footsteps grew louder. Then something strange happened. The footsteps stopped, just out of his view. "Do you feel that?" came a female voice. Miller, the bodyguard. "Yes," replied Carter. "Our friend is early today." Zarthol froze. What did they mean? How could they sense his presence? "Should we say hello?" Miller asked, a hint of amusement in her voice. "Not yet," Carter said. "Let's give him something to think about first." The footsteps resumed, changing direction. They were taking a different route. His ambush had somehow been anticipated and avoided. Zarthol remained motionless for several minutes, processing this unexpected development. Eventually, he retreated from his position and returned to his quarters, mind racing with possibilities. None of them were pleasant. When he entered his room, he immediately sensed something was wrong. Nothing was visibly disturbed, but the air felt different. He drew a small scanner from his pocket and swept the room. No new surveillance devices, no traps. Then he saw it. On his bed lay a small package wrapped in simple brown paper. He approached cautiously, scanning it for explosives or toxins. Finding none, he carefully unwrapped it. Inside was a flat rectangular object made of processed plant fiber. Paper, an archaic human communication medium. On it, written in black ink, was a message. "We know who you are and why you're here. For your own sake, run." At the bottom of the note was a red mark, a human thumbprint in what appeared to be actual blood. Sarthel's secondary heart began beating faster. Someone had entered his secured room, left this primitive warning, and departed without triggering any of his alarms. More disturbing still, they knew his identity and purpose. For the first time in his long career, Sarthel felt a sensation he had never experienced before: doubt. His communication device buzzed. A message from an untraceable source. "The contract is a setup. Humans aren't what you think. Last warning." It was signed simply, Lucy. Sarthel crushed the paper in his clawed hand. He would not be intimidated by primitive scare tactics. Tomorrow, he would complete his mission. No human would make him run. Morning came, and with it, a new plan. Sarthel abandoned subtlety. If his target knew he was being hunted, he would use that knowledge against them. Fear made prey predictable, made them make mistakes. Sarthel studied the station's layout again and identified a new position. Carter was scheduled to attend a diplomatic reception that evening in the Grand Hall. The route there passed through a narrow connecting corridor used mainly by service droids. It was the perfect spot for his new approach. He spent the day setting up, placing tiny devices at key points in the service corridor. These weren't weapons, but simple disruptors that would temporarily confuse the station's sensors. When activated, they would create a small blind spot, just enough for him to strike and vanish. As evening approached, Sarthel positioned himself in a rarely used air duct above the corridor. His 4 eyes adjusted perfectly to the dim light, giving him a clear view of the passage below. The poison dart was loaded and ready. At precisely 1900 hours, Sarthel activated the disruptors. Small red lights flashed briefly, then went dark. The security system in this section was now blind for exactly 3 minutes. Right on schedule, footsteps approached. Sarthel's grip tightened on his weapon. Through the grate, he saw John Carter walking calmly, dressed in formal diplomatic attire. Beside him, Samantha Miller wore a simple black outfit that somehow made her look more dangerous than any armor could. Sarthel aimed carefully at Carter's neck, where human skin was thinnest and the poison would work fastest. He controlled his breathing, steadied his hand, and fired. What happened next defied everything Sarthel knew about human capabilities. Miller's hand shot up with impossible speed, snatching the dart from the air mere inches from Carter's neck. Neither human broke stride. Neither looked surprised. Then Miller did something truly chilling. She looked directly up at the vent where Sarthel hid, invisible to normal senses. She smiled, not the friendly expression humans often displayed, but something predatory, something knowing. "Now you've done it," she said calmly, still looking right at him. Carter didn't even turn around. He simply spoke into a small device on his wrist. He didn't listen. "Activate Protocol Hunting Ground." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Not the general security alarm, but something different. A pulsing, rhythmic sound Sarthel had never heard before. "Attention all personnel," came an automated voice over the station's communication system. "Protocol Hunting Ground is now active in sections 15 through 22. All non-security personnel are advised to return to their quarters immediately." Sarthel felt a cold sensation spread through his body. Sections 15 through 22 encompassed all possible escape routes from his current position. "Should we tell him the rules?" Miller asked, still staring at Sarthel's hidden position. "No," Carter replied, finally turning to look up at the vent. "That would spoil the fun. He's a professional. Let him figure it out as he goes." The humans turned and walked away, making no attempt to capture or kill him. That was perhaps the most disturbing part. They weren't treating him as a threat, but as prey. Sarthel waited until they were gone, then quickly removed the vent cover and dropped into the corridor. He needed to move fast. Whatever Protocol Hunting Ground meant, it couldn't be good for him. He tapped his wrist communicator, trying to contact his emergency extraction team. Nothing but static. He tried the backup channel. More static. Somehow, all his communications had been blocked. The station's lighting changed, sections of the corridor dimming while others brightened. The environmental controls shifted too, some areas growing noticeably warmer, others cooling rapidly. It was as if the station itself was being reconfigured. Sarthol drew his backup weapon, a small energy pistol designed for close combat. He had never needed it before. His targets rarely saw him coming, but the familiar weight in his hand was reassuring. As he moved cautiously down the corridor, a message appeared on the display screens lining the walls. 5 words, glowing red against a black background. The hunt begins. Good luck. Sarthol moved through the station's maintenance tunnels with practiced stealth. His people had evolved as ambush predators on a world of dense forests, and moving unseen was in his blood. Yet for the first time, those instincts were being used not to hunt, but to flee. The tunnels should have been empty at this hour, but twice he had to freeze as human security personnel passed nearby. They didn't shout or run. They moved slowly, methodically, checking every shadow with small but powerful lights. "Remember the briefing," one said to another as they passed Sarthol's hiding spot in a recessed pike junction. "This one can blend with shadows. Trust your motion sensors, not your eyes." Motion sensors. Sarthol cursed silently. His camouflage abilities were useless against such technology. He needed to keep moving. He consulted the station map in his neural implant. There were 3 possible escape routes. The main docking bay was surely locked down. The diplomatic shuttle bay would be heavily guarded. That left the cargo area, where his emergency extraction plan included a small stealth ship hidden among the supply containers. As he made his way toward the cargo section, Sarthol noticed something odd. The station's normal traffic patterns had changed. Corridors that should have been busy were empty. Areas that should have been guarded were open. It was as if the humans were herding him toward a specific location. He stopped at a junction and considered his options. Going forward felt like walking into a trap, but going back meant facing the security teams he had just avoided. Sarthol decided to try another approach. He forced open an access panel and climbed into a ventilation shaft that ran parallel to the main corridor. The shaft was tight, designed for air, not bodies, but his flexible physiology allowed him to squeeze through. Halfway down the shaft, the station's gravity suddenly shifted. What had been down was now a wall, and Sarthol found himself tumbling sideways through the shaft until he crashed through a vent cover into a dimly lit storage room. He landed hard but rolled to his feet instantly, weapon ready. The room was empty except for crates and maintenance equipment. A single door led out. Sarthol's implant updated his position. He was now in Section 19, one level above the cargo bay where his escape ship waited. He was still on track, despite the gravity manipulation. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing an empty corridor beyond. This was too easy. Every instinct screamed trap, yet he had no choice but to proceed. He moved swiftly down the corridor, passing junction after junction without encountering any resistance. Finally, he reached the cargo bay entrance. The massive doors stood open, the bay beyond dark except for emergency lighting. Sarthol paused at the threshold, scanning for threats. His enhanced vision detected no movement, no heat signatures, nothing to suggest an ambush. Still, he hesitated. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the cargo bay, keeping to the shadows between stacked containers. His escape vessel was hidden in loading zone 7, just 50 meters ahead. He reached the spot and stopped cold. Where his ship should have been was instead a neatly organized display. Every component of the vessel had been disassembled and laid out in perfect order across the floor. Engine parts, navigation systems, weapons, all arranged as if for inspection. In the center of the display sat a simple paper note, just like the one in his quarters. It read, "Impressive ship. We took the liberty of making some improvements. Catch us if you can. Ben. For the first time in his long career as a hunter, Xarthal felt true fear. These humans hadn't just anticipated his moves. They were playing with him. The ship could never be reassembled in time, even if he had the necessary tools. A soft chuckle echoed through the cargo bay. Xarthal spun, weapon raised, but saw no one. "I warned you to run," came a female voice. Not Miller's, but similar. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "But I have to admit, I'm glad you didn't listen. It's been ages since we've had a proper hunt." The cargo bay doors slammed shut with a deafening clang, and the emergency lights began to pulse from white to red. "Round 1 complete," the voice said. "Now comes the fun part." Xarthal needed information. Without his ship, he needed to understand what he was facing. These humans were not behaving like any prey species he had ever encountered. He found a small maintenance office at the edge of the cargo bay. Inside was a computer terminal. Using a device from his belt, he bypassed the security and accessed the station's database. He needed to know more about humans, beyond the basic information in his briefing. The first files he found were standard diplomatic records. Nothing useful. Then he discovered a restricted database labeled Xenobiology. He broke through its security and began to read. What he learned made his blood run cold. Unlike most galactic species that evolved as either pure predators or pure prey, humans were something different. They had evolved as persistent hunters, creatures who could chase prey to exhaustion over days. Their unusual endurance allowed them to pursue animals that were faster, stronger, and more dangerous until those creatures simply collapsed from fatigue. He read further. Human history was filled with warfare that made even the most violent alien species seem peaceful by comparison. Their brief time as a unified species had been preceded by thousands of years of constant conflict. They didn't just fight for resources or territory. They fought for ideas, for beliefs, for symbols. Most disturbing was their entertainment. Humans consumed fiction, stories about things that never happened, for pleasure. And those stories often involved scenarios far more horrifying than anything Xarthal had ever experienced. They imagined monsters and terrors simply to frighten themselves for fun. A file labeled Personnel caught his attention. He opened it and found profiles of station staff. He searched for John Carter, and what he found confirmed his worst fears. Carter wasn't just a diplomat. Before his diplomatic career, he had been a Special Forces operative with a human military unit called Navy SEALs. His record included combat in multiple conflicts and counter-terrorism operations. His kill count rivaled Xarthal's own. He searched for Samantha Miller next. Her file was heavily redacted, but what remained was equally troubling. Former intelligence operative specialized in counter-assassination tactics. Expert in 17 forms of unarmed combat. Psychological profile noted enjoys the hunt. Enjoys the hunt. The phrase echoed in Xarthal's mind. He searched one more name. Lucy. Nothing came up officially, but a cross-reference in Miller's file mentioned a Team Lucy involved in station security protocols. Suddenly, the terminal screen went black. A message appeared, finding what you're looking for. Then, the humans were watching him even now. Xarthal abandoned the terminal and considered his options. His cover was blown. His escape route was gone. He was being hunted by creatures whose entire evolutionary history had prepared them to chase down prey that ran. The door to the office hissed open. Xarthal spun, weapon ready, but the corridor was empty. On the wall opposite, words had appeared, glowing softly. This way. An arrow pointed left down the corridor. He hesitated. Following directions from his hunters seemed foolish, yet what choice did he have? He could stay and wait for them to come to him, or he could move and perhaps find another way out. Xarthal chose to move. He entered the corridor, keeping his back to the wall, senses alert for any trap. The glowing arrow disappeared as he approached, only to reappear further down the corridor. He followed, turning at junctions where new arrows appeared. The path led him deeper into the station, away from the outer sections where escape might be possible. Finally, he reached a door marked Observation Deck. The final arrow pointed directly at it, then faded away. Xarthol checked his weapons one last time. If this was a trap, he would not go easily. He had never been prey before, but he would show these humans that even cornered prey had teeth. The door slid open at his approach. Beyond was a large, darkened room with a massive viewport showing the stars outside. In the center stood a single chair, facing away from him. As he entered, the chair slowly turned. Sitting in it was John Carter, holding 2 glasses of amber liquid. "You're probably wondering why you're still alive," Carter said casually. Xarthol stood motionless, weapon still drawn but aimed at the floor. Carter showed no fear. He simply sat there, holding 2 glasses as if they were meeting for a social occasion, rather than the end of a hunt. "Please, join me," Carter said, gesturing to another chair that rose from the floor beside him. "If I wanted you dead, you would be already." Xarthol hesitated, then slowly took the seat. His mind raced through possible escape plans, but each seemed more hopeless than the last. "Whiskey," Carter said, offering one of the glasses, "a human drink. I've been told it has a similar effect on Vexorian biology as it does on ours." Xarthol didn't take the glass. "How long did you know?" Carter smiled. "Before you even accepted the contract. The guild isn't as secure as they claim." He sipped his drink. "We've been watching you for some time, Xarthol. Your reputation is impressive. 300 kills across 17 systems. No failures. Until now," Xarthol said bitterly. "Oh, I wouldn't call this a failure," Carter replied. "Think of it as a career change." The door opened, and Samantha Miller entered, followed by a younger human female that Xarthol hadn't seen before. "This is Lucy," Carter said. "She's the one who tried to warn you." Lucy nodded. "You should have listened." "Why warn me at all?" Xarthol asked. "We needed to know if you could learn," Miller said, leaning against the wall. "If you had heeded the warning, it would have told us one thing about you. By ignoring it, you told us something else." Carter placed the untouched whiskey on a small table. "Humanity is new to the galactic community, Xarthol. We've noticed how other species view us. As weak. As prey." His voice hardened slightly. "We needed to send a message." "I was bait," Xarthol realized. "Yes," Carter nodded. "The guild has taken 12 contracts on human targets in the past year. 3 were completed before we understood what was happening. The other 9 assassins were dealt with more quietly than this. But none had your reputation," Lucy added. "None gave us the opportunity to make such a clear statement." Xarthol stared out at the stars. "So now you kill me. A public execution to warn others." Carter laughed, a sound that somehow chilled Xarthol more than any threat. "Kill you? That would be wasteful." He slid a tablet across the table. On its screen was a contract, not unlike the one Xarthol had accepted to kill Carter, but with very different terms. "Humanity doesn't want war," Carter explained. "But we want everyone to understand what they'd be getting into if they tried to start one. You can help with that." Xarthol read the contract. It offered him life and eventual freedom, in exchange for service as a cultural liaison between humans and other species. "You want me to be your ambassador?" he asked, confused. "More like an object lesson," Miller corrected. "Who better to explain why other species should fear humans than someone who has experienced it firsthand?" "And if I refuse?" Carter shrugged. "Then we turn you over to the station authorities as an assassin. Your trial would be public. Your execution would make an even stronger statement, though less nuanced than we prefer." Xarthol considered his options. Death or service to the very prey he had hunted. Neither appealed to his pride. But pride was a luxury for those with choices. "How do you know I won't betray you at the first opportunity?" he asked. Lucy smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Because we'll be watching. Always. Sarthol looked at the three humans. He had hunted many species, killed without remorse or hesitation. Yet these soft, fur-topped creatures had outmaneuvered him completely. They had turned his hunt into their game, made him dance to their tune without ever suspecting. He picked up the tablet and pressed his claw to the signature line. As the contract accepted his DNA marker, Carter raised his glass in a toast. Welcome to the team, Xarthal. I think you'll find working with humans will be the most educational experience of your long life. Xarthal had no doubt about that. What he didn't tell them, what perhaps they already knew, was that for the first time since he began his career as a hunter, he felt something new. Respect. And beneath it, a whisper of fear that would never fully fade away.